Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Accountability with Fraser Health.
Right now, in terms of day-to-day operations, we are able to access surge payments and other resources to ensure that we're meeting the demands.
How the Health Authority's CEO is defending care in the region. Mixed feelings about a raise to BC's minimum wage.
It's gonna give me a more comfortable.
So we need to increase prices.
Why the increase is making things easier for some, but challenging for others. And the sudden rush on e-bikes.
Fingers crossed, there will be hopefully enough money left by the time they get to me.
The province's new rebate goes live today, and the discounts are big.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. The head of BC's biggest health authority is defending their work amid a string of dire warnings from doctors about overcrowding and understaffing. Dr. Victoria Lee acknowledges staff are stretched, but insists Fraser Health is working with the BC government to get the resources they need. Dan Burrett joins us live now with more. Dan, a lot of questions and concerns for Dr. Lee.
And massive challenges, Anita. In the past few weeks, numerous healthcare staff, from ER doctors to gynecologists, have called out what they call dangerous conditions at Surrey Memorial Hospital and elsewhere. They claim understaffing, underfunding, and little transparency from the Health Authority have strained hospitals past breaking points. In one case, they argue the crisis has led to the death of a newborn several years ago. Dr. Victoria Lee says that tragic loss prompted recommendations around nursing care and 24/7 coverage. But amid all those challenges, the CBC's Jason D'Souza asked Dr. Lee 3 times today if she feels they are getting the adequate resources from the province.
Right now, in terms of day-to-day operations, we are able to access surge payments and other resources to ensure that we're meeting the demands.
And so you're satisfied, that's fair to say?
Well, I think every single day we're stretched in terms of services, and that's why we work together to find ways to ensure that we're constantly looking at the demands. And that's especially important in Fraser Health. And we're working together with the province to ensure that we're getting adequate resources for the population that we serve in Fraser Health.
Yesterday, doctors met with Health Minister Adrian Dix. They say it was a start to address their concerns, but not enough without more funding. As for patients, earlier today we spoke with 2 people whose family members have been in Surrey Memorial for a month each. They say being in there day in and day out is draining, and they don't think the hospital can handle the countless demands on it.
Exhausting, mentally draining. I can't even really deal with the emotions of the diagnosis because I'm too busy worrying about what the doctors are doing or what the nurses are doing or what they aren't doing.
As for the doctors and nurses needing more staff, 100%. It's just like the commercials. Nurse, nurse, you know? Like all night, 24 hours a day, the bell is going ding, 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 ding.
All this comes as the BC government today announced whistleblower protection being expanded to include healthcare workers. As we've heard, many have now gone public. There are specific types of wrongdoing that can be disclosed under the legislation. That includes a serious misuse of public money, an act or omission that puts someone's life in danger, or something that could be considered a criminal offence. The BC Nurses Union applauds the move.
We believe we should not feel like that we're under any threat of being fired for speaking out. When our patients are in need and they're not getting the services or the care that should be provided to them.
Keeping in mind, BC has endured the brutality of the pandemic. That has prompted many healthcare workers to leave. We know they're working on recruitment, but right now still massive challenges for the leadership and the staff in BC's biggest health authority. Anita.
Dan Burrett live tonight. Thank you. Well, minimum wage workers across BC are getting a pay bump. The increase is meant to help keep up with the cost of inflation. But as Susanna De Silva tells us, not everyone is happy with the change.
Every penny counts these days for most Canadians, especially those making minimum wage.
Because it's a survival job for us.
I mean, how much of a difference do you think $1 an hour even can make?
If like I am earning bi-weekly $700, if $1 increase, so it's gonna be $750 or something like that. So then I can manage a little stuff
But those in charge of the grocery store he works at say it is a worrisome added cost on top of many others, on top of already thin margins.
I always check prices every week when we receive the delivery, and they increase like every time I place an order. So that affects us so much. So we need to increase prices.
BC's minimum wage jumped to $16.75, an increase of 6.9% tied to last year's rate of inflation. Only Yukon's is higher. Saskatchewan pays the lowest at $13, though that is going up $1 later this year. Their increases, some business groups say, many small companies can't handle.
We have to be very cautious that we don't start charging $25 for a hamburger. We'll have no customers. So we walk a really tight balance here.
This economist applauds the move, saying previous increases haven't driven up prices or unemployment.
Some businesses that employ a lot of low-wage workers feel that pressure somewhat, but why does the burden have to fall on the employees?
By one advocacy group's calculation, the minimum wage needed to cover basics in Metro Vancouver is around $24 an hour.
But they're still probably already having to work multiple jobs or make difficult decisions about whether they're going to live in overcrowded housing or what they're going to be able to do to be able to pay for essentials.
Our store wouldn't be the store it is without our staff.
For this Vancouver bookstore, rising costs have meant doing things like reducing discounts, but they are managing to continue offering staff higher pay.
But at the end of the day, when we looked at the increase in the living wage overall, it wasn't that much more overall throughout for our costs throughout the year.
Difficult calculations made easier for some, harder for others after today's increase. Susanna Da Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
A letter from the province is pushing the city of Surrey to make a decision on policing and fast. Last week, it was suggested a decision was coming soon, but with that no longer being the case, we bring in our Justin McElroy live with the latest developments. Justin, the province, well, seems a little bit annoyed tonight, eh?
Just a tad, Anita. People might remember it was about a month ago that they told the city of Surrey, look, it's up to you what decision you're going to make, but we strongly advise you keep the Surrey Police Service and ditch the RCMP, offering many financial incentives. But they asked Surrey as well to sign a non-disclosure form to get all the information that they had when they came up with their report and recommendation. And it was last week that Premier David Eby said he was hopeful that a vote would happen next week. Well, flash forward to today, Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth writing a letter to Surrey Council saying that not everyone has signed that non-disclosure form yet, so he's annoyed that they haven't all had the information that he has, and urging them to set a date to actually have a vote on this, implying that one isn't going to be happening anytime soon. So obviously this is costing Surrey taxpayers a lot each month that no decision has been made, and certainly the city is in a tight spot given the mayor wanting to stick with the RCMP, but the province trying to accelerate a decision there and making their annoyance known that none is forthcoming, at least in the very short term.
Has the city responded to the letter, Justin?
Yeah, this just came out in the last couple hours, but we got a hold of Mayor Brenda Locke, and she said that she won't be forced into a quick decision. Have a listen.
We're doing our due diligence. Our staff have to take a look at all the information in front of them. We have to see that report, and we will do it right. We will not do it rushed. We will not do it because the minister's timetable says so, and I will not be intimidated or bullied by this minister, and that's exactly what this letter is.
So obviously no love lost between the two. It's been more than 4 years that Surrey has been going around this decision, so why not another few weeks? But something should be happening, as you heard from the mayor there, in a couple weeks' time. We'll see if that ends up being the final decision in this, or whether a few more rounds are still left to go before one force or another is the final one.
Justin McElroy, thank you. Well, starting today, you can apply to get some cash back when buying an electric bike in BC. The government is offering income-based rebates up to $1,400. As Yasmin Renea reports, the program is already proving quite popular.
We're here at an e-bike store in Burnaby on the first day that rebates are available to residents older than 19.
People started making inquiries days ago.
I'd say probably the last couple of days, we probably had 10 people in just casually looking and interested.
Neil Davies says bikes at his store could sell out in just a few weeks.
We don't have a tremendous inventory, but hopefully some of our suppliers have a little bit of backup for us if we do get a really strong run. And
the government is offering rebates to reduce people's dependence on cars and lower carbon emissions.
I think it's beautiful. For me, bikes is one of the best ways to commute in the city.
I think the rebate is a good idea.
They're based on income, ranging from $350 to $1,400. The e-bike must cost more than $2,000 before tax. Sarah Welton applied for the rebate first thing this morning and is 1,300th on the wait list.
Fingers crossed, there will be hopefully enough money left by the time they get to me.
The government says there's enough money to help up to 9,000 people all over the province, but there are concerns about cities that aren't bike-friendly.
So if cycling is not attractive, there is a chance that fewer people from outside Metro Vancouver would participate.
Davies is more optimistic, saying e-bike use has grown across BC.
Burnaby, New Westminster, Coquitlam, the Valley, everyone's gonna probably see more interest and definitely more sales volume.
Cycling advocates want to see more money invested in the rebate program and more people on electric wheels. Yasmin Ranaya, CBC News, Burnaby.
To Kelowna now, where a homeless camp has been thrown into the national spotlight this week after the leader of the federal opposition tweeted a video showing a row of dozens of tents at the city's designated homeless camping area. As Brady Strachan reports, some of the people living there say they're being used as political pawns.
It's a 1-minute video that has Kelowna trending on Twitter. The video shows tent after tent in a long line at the city's designated homeless camping area. It doesn't show the full picture of life at the site, however, and that has the people living there feeling like they're being used.
Yeah, you feel kind of like you're on display.
Yeah. In a tweet this week, Conservative Party of Canada leader Pierre Poilievre shared the video, blaming the situation on the Trudeau government and the NDP and comparing the Kelowna encampment to a third world country. Now, people from all ends of the political spectrum are pointing fingers. Everyone is commenting, it seems, except for the people who actually live there.
There's where we sleep.
Debbie Hotaling and her partner Garth have been staying at the encampment for 2 years, forced to live here, they say, after a series of hard knocks, including being laid off during the pandemic. Now homeless, they say it's difficult to escape their situation.
You know, like I said, we found places that we could afford, but there's already a stigma attached to the fact that we live here.
Yeah.
Right?
You go apply for a job, you can't see you at Tent City, right?
Their story is more complex than any 1-minute video can tell, and she says it's a terrible feeling being used as fodder for political gains.
It's laughable that he would use this.
Yeah, why?
Yes, you know, to not even come down and speak to anyone here.
The city says an estimated 200 people are homeless in Kelowna, 4 times as many as just 2 years ago.
We have to remember that we're operating in the 7th year of an opioid crisis in our province. We have a housing and affordable housing and a labor crunch.
He says with no available beds in homeless shelters, the city has designated the site along the biking trail for people who have nowhere else to go.
It's unfortunate that a 50-some-odd second video casts so much attention to a sliver of a situation. But we hope that this might bring attention to all orders of government to a critically important issue.
As for Debbie and Garth, they wish governments would work together to provide affordable homes for people who want them. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
Langley RCMP have revealed more information about a fatal crash involving a pair of dump trucks yesterday afternoon. Police say the victim is a 60-year-old man from Chilliwack. He died after his car was crushed between 2 dump trucks traveling along 16th Avenue. RCMP say the victim and the truck in front of him crossed 200th Street, but were slowed by traffic from an earlier accident ahead of them. A second dump truck then crossed the intersection but didn't stop in time. Police say the 2 other drivers were not hurt and are cooperating with investigators. High schools on Vancouver Island are warning parents, saying gangs are approaching students at local schools and trying to recruit them. In a letter shared by the Greater Victoria School District, administrators warn that police on the southern part of the island are alarmed about potential gang involvement among a small group of local teenagers. Victoria Police Chief says gang members are trespassing on school property without regard for staff, and it's leading to a rise in violence, drug dealing, and weapons-related offenses among youth off school property as well.
This is really the first time that we are seeing a concentrated effort by organized criminals and organized crime groups to recruit into our schools, and we've not really seen them to be this bold and this brazen and really flaunt police, teachers, parents, and to be actively recruiting in the aggressive manner that we're seeing today.
Parents are being asked to monitor their kids for any change in their friend groups or behavior and to watch for unexplained absences from school or new possessions. Police say kids are often recruited to sell items like vaping products and high-end clothing, and that gang behavior is often promoted on social media. A church that has long championed LGBTQ inclusion has had its rainbow flag defaced just as Pride Month starts today. Ladner United Church has had several flags ruined over the years. CBC's Yasmin Gandam spoke with members of the LGBTQ community about the apparent hate living close to home.
It's just kind of like a punch in the stomach.
A colorful symbol of inclusion, painted black. And not for the first time. Ladner United Church says the defaced flags were found early Wednesday morning. Despite the incident, the church says it will continue to support inclusivity.
So our flags are not going anywhere. They'll still be here, and we will still stand up for people to all be treated equally and with respect.
Staff and volunteers spent the day cleaning up the black paint, but it's still marked along the pavement.
Came prepared with 2 different pots of paint.
Delta police say the incident is being investigated as a hate crime. Mounties say this is the 5th time the church's pride flag has been vandalized.
Previously, we have seen them spray painted, torn, slashed with a pole and a knife, and egged. So we have 5 different methods of damage that we're looking at.
Members of Delta's LGBTQI2S+ community say it is unfortunate to see incidents like this still happening.
When you feel that we're trying to make steps to protect and advocate and move ahead for human rights for this community, it's devastating to see it happen, a hate crime happen right next door, right in your own hometown.
But with more than 1 million now openly identifying as members of the community, recent data shows hate crimes are on the rise, with over 250 incidents reported in 2019 alone, more than half of which are violent.
We want somebody to feel safe in their body, in themselves, in their community. So it's very concerning.
Despite the incident, the church has received an outpouring of support from the community.
I came in this morning and someone had put rainbow letters that said "Love wins" across the lawn, and I don't even know who did it.
The investigation into the hate crime is ongoing, and anyone with information is asked to contact Delta Police. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Ladner.
TransLink says ridership is catching up to pre-pandemic levels. New numbers show system-wide volumes over the last 2 weeks reached 88% of 2019 data, and weekend ridership hit 99% of pre-pandemic levels. TransLink says 400,000 people tapped their fare cards in May. It also says more funding is needed to deal with overcrowding on its chronically busy routes. Well, some inline skaters in Vancouver's West End are concerned about the city's plan to redesign Sunset Beach Park. The park board wants to make the area more resilient to climate change and rising sea levels. But as Janella Hamilton reports, that plan may come at the cost of a popular rink having to move to a less desirable area.
Bronwyn Absalom has been sober for a year and a half. She credits roller skating and those who use the rink at Sunset Beach for helping save her life.
I struggle with mental health and addiction issues, and I found that I needed something with community and something that got my body moving.
But the rink may be on the move. The city plans to redesign the waterfront areas to make it more resilient to climate change and rising sea levels. The preliminary concept drawings suggest the inline hockey and roller skating rink could be moved to under the Burrard Bridge. But Lauren Milne, who had a part in designing the current rink 2 decades ago, says the proposed move comes with problems.
First of all, the land over there is uneven, it's a bank, so that would make it really difficult for building an appropriate facility there. I'm also really aware of sound travel. The problem, if you go over here under the bridge, on Broad Street Bridge, it's literally up against a residence.
And with weekly roller disco events at the rink, music is a big part of the skating culture in the West End.
I just think, why change a good thing? The rink is here, people love it, it's at the beach.
Kiara Allen says safety is also a concern if the rink was moved to a smaller location with less lighting.
Around Burrard Bridge can feel a little bit sketchy at night, if I'm honest. So just obviously having visibility and for that to be made a safe zone would be very important as well.
Milne believes improvements can be made to the existing rink to help mitigate the impact of future extreme weather events.
They could bring in sand and gravel. They could raise the height of it right here.
It's such an amazing community, and I just don't want anything to harm that.
In a statement, the park board says draft designs could change based on feedback from the public and that any change isn't set in stone. A draft concept plan is set to be released in the fall. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
There are more disruptions for hundreds of Air Canada passengers today because of a glitch in the same system that briefly grounded flights last week. It's a crucial safety component, but even so, Ethel Musa is finding many frustrated customers.
For many Air Canada travelers, Thursday was a day of delays.
Right now we're just waiting in limbo.
I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why they can't organize.
It was a disaster.
Canada's major airline says a technical issue with its communicator system caused more than 250 flights to be delayed at one point during the day. That's almost half of its daily load. Air Canada says it's working hard to rectify the situation, and the federal government says it's keeping a close eye.
Based on the current rules, passengers are protected, and that Air Canada has obligations to passengers who are impacted because this is caused by things that the airline has control over.
This is the second time in a week Air Canada has been hit by a problem with its communicator system, causing countless delays and cancellations. The airline says the outages are unrelated, but two in such a short period of time is not ideal, says one expert.
It's somewhat disheartening.
But there is one benefit to their timing.
Hopefully they'll have enough time between now and the start of the summer peak to iron out some of the issues that they're experiencing.
The federal government tabled new rules in April that will make it harder for airlines to get out of compensating passengers for costly delays and cancellations. Ethel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Time now to check in with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. And Joe, after a really hot and dry May, we were hoping for some January weather, but not looking like it's going to happen, eh?
It does not, Anita. Yes, often the month of June, we see these big low pressure systems from Alaska sort of sink down and bring, cool and showery weather. We saw it last year through May and June. It does not look like we're going to get it this time around. That being said, we do happen to have a low pressure system spinning off our coast, but most of our mid and long range models show warm and dry weather for BC for at least the first few weeks of June. Now, things may change towards the end, and we really could use a change up with the fire weather forecast we have, but expect hot and dry to kick June off, which really is the official start of meteorological summer. So I just wanted to show you the big picture as far as temperatures go. These are the afternoon highs across the province for tomorrow. We're just slightly above seasonal. We'll start to feel that heat build as we head into the weekend. We'll be hitting 30s across the interior, mid-20s for the south coast, likely not breaking any significant temperature records. But once we hit Tuesday next week. That's when we're going to start to see that ridge really funnel in that warm air from the south. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week, we may end up with some special weather statements across the province for that heat. And at that point, we'll be going on 7+ days with no rain for a lot of the province. So fire danger will really be ramping up at a time when we would like to have some showers and cooler temperatures. So it does not look like we will get that over the next couple of weeks. We'll be keeping an eye on that fire forecast very closely. Today, temperatures were just above the seasonal mark. YVR 19 right now, but feeling those mid-20s inland, 22 into Port Coquitlam tonight. We'll feel a little warmer still tomorrow. Part of the temperature bump up today was we got that much more sun. So I'll take you through a sunny and warm weekend coming up.
Sounds good. Talk soon. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
The devastation is everywhere. Now, a team of researchers from UBC is heading to Turkey to learn from the destruction of their catastrophic earthquakes, how it could help make BC safer. Next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. Well, as you just heard from Joe, BC had an extremely hot and dry May. That led to wildfires in the province starting earlier than usual. So this afternoon, Johanna and I actually spoke outside the CBC studios about what lies ahead. We dove a little bit deeper, than what she just told us now. Take a look. Joe, the Donny Creek wildfire burning right now in BC, and in terms of hectares, it's larger than anything we saw combined last year in terms of wildfires. So thinking about that and how bad it already is, what can we expect for the summer ahead?
It is a daunting start to this wildfire season, you're right, just as far as how early, how intense, and how many hectares we've already seen burn. And you're right, we're just turning the page on June 1st. You mentioned the hot and dry May. We were well above average for temperatures across most of the province and well below seasonal on rainfall. And then looking ahead to the long range forecast, you're right, we often get these Alaska low pressure systems move down across BC in the month of June. We actually saw it last year. May and June was cooler and wetter than normal. They kind of hang out, bringing in showers, reducing that fire risk for June, giving us a little bit of a break before we head into our typically hot and dry months of July and August. That is not likely to happen this year. Looking at some of the medium range forecasts, we've got a high pressure building as we speak. This is the start of our latest long dry stretch that will last 10+ days. And then our climate models indicating that this will likely continue through June, through the summer and into early fall, Anita, because of El Nino. We've had El Nino the past couple of summers. That typically means hot and dry for us. This one is exceptionally strong, and that usually means hot and dry for us. So all of these factors lining up in what seems like it could be the latest historic wildfire season.
So keeping all that in mind, can you talk about what you and other weather forecasters look at? What kind of tools you use in trying to figure all this out for the long term?
Yeah, great question. And we have some amazing wildfire forecasters in this province who are always sharing information, and things are changing with climate change. We typically, when we're looking at fire forecasting for an active fire situation for the next couple of days, we're really looking at temperatures, relative humidity, wind, and precipitation. Generally, I look at what's called the 30-30-30 rule. So if temperatures are over 30 degrees, relative humidity under 30%, and winds gusting over 30 kilometers per hour, we can expect runaway wildfire conditions. It just means that current wildfires are hard to get under control, and we are looking at that setup over the next couple of weeks. But long term, when we produce these seasonal forecasts, we're looking at things like amount of moisture in the soil, amount of snow in our snowpacks, what happened the season before. A lot of our fires are now burning through the winter season underground. So many more factors than just the weather conditions go into our seasonal forecast.
We are in downtown Vancouver talking about the wildfire season. Thanks so much for joining us. And
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks, Anita.
This weekend, UBC earthquake engineering experts will be in Turkey conducting research in the regions hit hardest by February's devastating earthquakes. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake killed more than 50,000 people and destroyed thousands of buildings. Now, these experts will travel to 18 affected Turkish towns in an effort to understand why some buildings collapsed and why others didn't, and to find out how to avoid those impacts in the future. Joining me live is Carlos Ventura. He's a professor of civilian engineering at UBC. Carlos, can you give us a better idea of what you're hoping to understand with this visit?
Yeah, every earthquake provides lessons for us to learn and to apply to our community. So the purpose of this trip, although it's 4 months after the earthquake, is to understand better, as you say, how buildings and other infrastructure behave during an earthquake, and especially why some buildings collapse and others did not. And at the same time, we like to understand the recovery process, how people feel about that and their comfort level. Are they ready to go back to their homes and apartments or not? So we want to cover all these areas during this trip.
How do you think all of that research will help us here in British Columbia?
The earthquake engineering is an evolving science and engineering concept, like also an art. And we have very good building codes here in Canada. The bridge code is also very good. So we have very good engineering, but there is always a room to learn more, to improve. And this is why the visiting these areas affected by earthquakes help us have a check on what we are doing, determine if we need to do something else or we need to change the approach that we are following to provide buildings that are resistant to earthquakes and other infrastructure. So this is a continual learning process that we follow by doing this type of visits.
Yeah, and we, of course, here in British Columbia are in an earthquake zone. We're expecting the big one at some point. How do our conditions compare to what you're about to see in Turkey? Are they quite similar or pretty different?
Yeah, good question. There are things that are very similar and there are others that are very different. For example, this earthquake that happened is something very unprecedented, that we have 2 major earthquakes occurring within 9 hours on the same day, pretty much. Although the faults that caused those earthquakes were really very different, but very close to each other. And we have the effect of all the construction near the vicinity of the faults. And we have many areas here that we also have areas that are potentially built close to some faults. Victoria is one example that there is a fault that is known to go across the city, and we have other areas as well. So learning from what happens in construction and infrastructure near a fault is very, very informative for us, because the level of shaking attenuates as we go farther away from the fault. So although we always talk about the big one here, we have other type of earthquakes that are very similar in nature to what we have seen in Turkey this time.
Carlos Ventura, professor of civilian engineering at UBC, heading to Turkey this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
A local vaccine advocate is calling on the province to give free shingles shots, arguing the move would save patients from unnecessary pain and BC from unnecessary health care costs. Pharmacist Ajit Johal says shingles can largely be prevented, or at least less severe, with 2-dose vaccine treatment. Johal says the public system currently won't cover such a treatment, and private health plans can be hit or miss. But other provinces do offer the vaccines for free.
Ontario has had one for a couple of years now. They cover it for a certain age demographic, so I believe it's 65 to 70 years of age. Quebec recently announced theirs. They cover it for over 80 years of age, as well as immunocompromised populations over the age of 18. And PEI has a program where they cover it for over the age of 60.
Johal says pharmacists are in a good position to get those shots into people's arms after pandemic-related immunization programs. Shingles can cause a blistering skin rash and lead to long-term pain in some cases. Well, Canada will soon have warning labels put directly on individual cigarettes, becoming the first country in the world to do so. But as Christine Birak explains, experts are asking whether that's going far enough to curb smoking.
As far as health warnings for smokers go, this one will be in your face, literally.
It is a very positive announcement that Canada will be the first country in the world to have a warning directly on every cigarette.
Health Canada's new tobacco labeling rules will force companies to add more warnings, telling users there's poison in every puff. Cigarettes cause cancer, impotence, leukemia, and harm children. The question is, will they work?
I think they should, because it would stop everybody, probably even me.
Once you've seen the warning once, you see it again, it doesn't really have the same effect.
While smoking rates in Canada have been declining, 12% still smoke. Cigarettes kill approximately 48,000 Canadians every year.
The fact that there is a warning on the product gets people to think about, really, should I be putting this into my mouth?
Researchers say warnings do push some people to quit and discourage younger users from starting. Studies have shown labels are effective in communicating the health risks of smoking.
At the end of it all, the tobacco industry has the most intimate communication of all, directly to the brains of the people who smoke.
That direct line of control is the highly addictive power of nicotine, which keeps users coming back for more.
They designed the cigarette to be really, really controllable through the puffing that people don't even know sometimes that they're doing.
This bill will create generational change.
New Zealand reduced the amount of nicotine allowed in cigarettes, and those born after 2009 will not legally be allowed to buy cigarettes in their lifetime.
There is no good reason to allow a product to be sold that kills half the people that use it.
Canada's tobacco strategy aims to hit less than 5% tobacco use by the year 2035. Experts say it'll take higher prices, lower nicotine levels, and better programs for smokers to reach that goal. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
Ready to give up their Olympic gold medals in a fight for justice. After the break, we go to India, where the country's top female wrestlers are making some big accusations.
This is a typical day for the Coast Guard. They go on patrol looking for anyone who might be in trouble and do what they can to help out.
Just for your notes there, we're traveling at just over 60 kilometers an hour. Roughly the speed that the C-Link will do.
How are you guys feeling?
Fine.
These people are lucky. There were no major problems. They remembered their hats and sunscreen, but forgot to take along necessities like a radio, flares, and a map. The tide was quite low, and many sailors found themselves too close to the surf line and headed towards dangerous shoal banks. These conditions can fool even the most seasoned sailors returning from a long weekend journey. If they had radio contact at least, they would have had some warning about the conditions ahead. Hovercraft Captain Brian Wooten says thinking ahead is the best way to ensure a safe and pleasant day on the water.
Well, we all got up this morning and looked out the kitchen window, and it's a bright sunny day. And maybe we didn't check up on the weather conditions. We didn't check on what the tide was doing. It's a case of preparation. Question of going out and finding that old safety equipment that you had in the boat, make sure that it's all up to scratch, and that the boat is properly turned out to serve you well on a beautiful weekend like this.
The engine heated up, that's how I ended up here. So you're broken down then? Well, when I put some water back in it, I guess I'll be okay.
Inexperience, poor weather conditions, and a lack of local knowledge can also cause problems for boaters. The Coast Guard is also concerned about the latest trend towards using cellular phones in place of marine radios. They say it makes finding stranded vessels much more difficult. With a radio, finding the wayward boaters is pretty straightforward. Those with cellular phones can get confused about their location, which delays their rescue. Courses are available for anyone who wants to learn more about safety on the water through the Power Squad program, and the Coast Guard also gives seminars. Diane Collins, CBC News, Vancouver.
More than 1 million people have fled fighting in Sudan in the last week alone. 350,000 have taken refuge across the border in South Sudan. As we hear from the CBC's Chris Brown, finding safety is a dangerous undertaking.
Well, this is truly a heartbreaking, depressing, chaotic scene. What you're looking at are hundreds of people, roughly 400 people crammed into this boat on the White Nile River. Right now we're in South Sudan. The border with Sudan is very close to here, and all of these people have fled the fighting and the violence that has been going on in Sudan since April the 15th. They're mostly South Sudanese. They have escaped, and this is an important part of their journey. There's no road south of here, so this is the only way, the only path to freedom for them. But it's a pretty awful one. You can see how tightly jammed in they all are. There's no way to stand up. There's no bathroom facilities. They have to bring all of their own food, and they're going to be on this boat for 2 days. That's how long it's going to take them to get to their stop up the Nile River. They will stop occasionally on the way to build fires and cook food and so forth, but as I say, it's pretty awful. And this is just a tiny sliver of the displacement that the fighting, the violence in Sudan has caused, and it's spilled over into all the countries around Sudan, but really South Sudan has suffered the most. This is a country that is one of the poorest in the world. It doesn't have the resources to support any of these people who have come back. So there's a huge fear about the destabilization that war is causing and will continue to cause, not just here in South Sudan, but in all of the countries that surround Sudan. Chris Brown, CBC News, in Rink, South Sudan.
They're calling it a fight for justice. India's top female wrestlers protesting against the man who runs their sport federation, accusing him of systemic harassment of young athletes. Salima Shivji is looking at why they say they'll give up their Olympic medals to protect their own.
Police moved in swiftly this week, violently taking down the protest, dragging India's elite wrestlers off to detention. After 5 long weeks of a sit-in, they sacrificed precious training time to demand the arrest of the head of their wrestling federation, whom they accuse of sexually harassing young wrestlers for years. Now, far from the turmoil,
so nice to meet you.
Sakshi Malik, India's first female Olympic medalist in wrestling, tells me how frustrating it's been to have their allegations ignored. If our voice is not heard after having done so much for the country, how will the voice of any young victim be heard? We're fighting for the daughters of India, she says. The quashing of their protest was so demoralizing, she and her fellow wrestlers threatened to throw their hard-won medals into the Ganges River.
And there it is, victory for Sakshi Malik of India.
A glorious moment that now feels forgotten. It's sad, she tells me. What kind of country are we living in where we can't even fight for the truth? Malik says it's all politics. The Federation president, Brij Bhushan Singh, is a powerful man, a longtime politician with the ruling BJP party. He's been accused of crimes before: theft, intimidation, even murder. He vociferously denies the sexual harassment charges against him.
This protest site where the wrestlers camped out for 5 weeks is now off limits. The athletes are regrouping, figuring out what to do next, but they do have some high-level support.
From India's powerful farmers' unions. This is about pride in athletes who brought the country glory. The government must listen to them, this farmer leader says. Support, too, from the International Olympic Committee, who said in a statement these images were very disturbing. The wrestlers, who say they've risked it all to clean up their sport, don't plan on ending their protest anytime soon. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Delhi.
Coming up, the race to keep up as intense heat fuels a massive wildfire in Nova Scotia. How residents are weighing the risk as they get ready for more devastation.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts would tell. Just like an old time movie about a ghost from a wishing well.
Mejmen odnes a denně vysčetla novina.
Just like an old time movie about a ghost from a wishing well.
Ein Buch, das du von neuem liest, in dem du dich oft selbst beschrieben siehst.
If I could read your mind, love, what a tale your thoughts could tell. Just like a paperback novel of the kind that drugstores sell.
Then you reach the part where the heartaches come. The hero who be me. The heroes often fail. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back.
If I could read your mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell.
Just like an old time movie about a ghost from a wishing well.
In a castle dark or a fortress strong with chains upon my feet, you know that ghost is me. If I could read your mind, love, what a tale your thoughts could tell. Just like a paperback novel, the kind the drugstore sell.
Then you reach the part where the heartache comes, the love that didn't dawn, but memories linger on and on and on and on and on. And have you gone to the moon or the corner saloon and to rack and a ruin? I don't care, this is where you should be. And I just don't get it.
The danger from Nova Scotia's wildfire situation is growing. There are 4 out-of-control fires in the province, including an 18,000-hectare monster in the south. That's the largest on record there. Now, thousands of residents have been forced from their homes, and Kayla Hansel is in Shelburne tonight, where residents are weighing risk and facing loss.
All day, it was a race to the next fire. including at an historic members-only recreational facility in Halifax.
We're having a very, very busy afternoon due to fire activity. You can hear some sirens going now.
All of it tying up resources.
Believe it or not, in the last 12 hours, we have had somebody burning leaves with a propane torch. We've had somebody else who was starting a bonfire. This is a clear violation of the no stupid policy.
Not helped by the record temperatures and extremely dry conditions. The biggest fire is in Shelburne County, the largest wildfire in the province's history.
I think my house is on fire right now.
Actually, she thinks both of the homes she owns in this area are on fire. So convinced, she's already made a plan.
I just ordered a baby barn so I can turn it into a tiny house. Because there's a wait list for it.
This man was forced out of his home on Sunday, went to stay with friends, and had to leave again last night.
It's like you're running from, this thing that won't quit.
Across the province, nearly 20,000 people are out of their homes, and the fires are also affecting businesses and industries. Peter Sutherland is a blueberry farmer. He took this photo from his field before he had to leave. He's lost a lot of equipment.
You got insurance, but what I built up there, I'll never get it back. I'm sorry.
Some fishermen have lost gear.
It can be a financial disaster, and not only for the captains and crews, but other people around who rely on the lobster fishery.
That is absolutely fantastic. You guys, amazing.
But through it all, people are showing up to help.
The amount of donations that have been turned in, money and product, is amazing. If we ask for something, we get it.
An extraordinary effort during an extreme time of need. And fire officials are warning they need that same community spirit and sense of responsibility to put the fires out.
Now, Joe, while the situation is pretty dire at this point, perhaps a little bit of relief coming?
Yeah, big time, Anita. For the East Coast, the much-needed rain is knocking on the doorstep of Nova Scotia. We're seeing it already in New Brunswick. Wanted to show you the big picture tonight. These are the current temperatures, and I've put the jet stream on, which really separates the different air masses. It was extremely hot in parts of Nova Scotia today. Halifax hitting 32 degrees, but that jet stream is sinking south as we speak, so bringing in some cooler air and rain starting tomorrow. Nova Scotia, for those two out-of-control fires, could end up with over 40 millimeters by the end of the weekend. So that is the news that the East Coast needed. Meanwhile, we're sort of seeing the opposite. Our swirling low that is bringing showers to central and northern BC is going to fizzle out before it's able to bring that rain right down across the southern interior due to a building high-pressure ridge. So it is building temperatures, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be watching for. And we do have a smoky skies bulletin up in the northeast. We're going to see possibly hazy conditions over the next 48 hours, mainly from the northern Alberta fires. Temperatures are on the move. This weekend, we'll be looking to see them get close to the 30s in the interior. As I mentioned earlier, it's really Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that we'll see the bulk of that. What could be a heat wave for southern BC, including parts of Metro Vancouver. We'll keep an eye on that forecast. We could be getting close to the 30s. There is that low pressure system, though, sort of spinning out by the time we hit Sunday as high pressure moves in. Tomorrow, though, fairly seasonal. Prince George 23. Watch for the chance of an afternoon thunderstorm in the Kootenays. There's your 20s for YVR, more like 23 to 25 inland. And then watching Tuesday, Wednesday, really for when we get into those concerning temperatures. And we'll definitely be watching fire weather.
No kidding. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
It's an unusual and potentially intoxicating sight. Swans in a Slovakian field aren't taking flight. We'll explain why after the break.
A machine is used for genomic sequencing, just one weapon in the war on cancer. And now, thanks to a new donation, researchers are getting a lot more ammunition for that war.
The significance and the enormity of this generous gift from Paul Albrechtsen Foundation cannot be overstated.
It's the single largest gift to a medical organization in Manitoba history, $27 million to Cancer Care Manitoba. The money comes from the Paul Albrechtsen Foundation. Kirk McManus is a senior scientist with the Research Institute. He says the gift will transform cancer research in Manitoba.
We will now be able to do leading-edge experiments that takes advantage of patient samples that are brought to us to be able to better understand the aberrant genetics that give rise to these diseases. And with that, we can ideally begin to develop new ways or strategies to combat some of those early events.
Albrechtsen's son, Scott, was there to announce the donation. He says the gift comes after a lifetime of his father's altruism.
I'm really proud to support this initiative, and I think my father would be as well. It's progression in research, and that's something that my dad was really excited about.
Paul Albrechtsen made his fortune in trucking, and in his later years donated generously to Manitoba's health sector. He died in 2019. Dr. Sri Navaratnam heads the institute.
And the Paul Albrechtsen Foundation's gift enables us to fulfill our commitment by investing in research, which is the pathway to discovery and excellence in cancer care.
Money from the historic gift will be used in a variety of different ways. $17 million will go towards upgrading existing floors in the Cancer Research Center, bringing them up to date with current scientific standards. $4 million will go towards single-cell testing. 5 different machines that explore how single cells interact with each other inside tumors, a key part of cancer research. Nearly $3 million will go towards genomic sequencing, exploring that and what part it plays in the picture. And nearly $4 million will go towards the Western Manitoba Cancer Research Center in Brandon, the Center for Hope. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Hundreds of swans seem to be stuck in a poppy field in Slovakia, intoxicated and unable to fly away. Local farmers say the birds may have developed a taste for the plant with narcotic properties. The swans arrived in February and appear to have become addicted to the poppy sprouts, which are toxic. Some birds have reportedly died, and now there is concern for the remaining swans. Okay, every Thursday, Lisa Christensen sets your social calendar for the weekend ahead. And if your wallet is feeling pinched, well, don't worry. Lisa's got an event for you that won't cost a penny.
I'm Lisa Christensen. It's time for Getting Out, your weekly look at all the reasons to get out of the house. And today, I'm at the Vancouver Art Gallery.
First Free Friday Night. That's
Okay,
right.
yeah.
So First Free Friday Nights is something that we're really happy to start. We launched it in May, and this is our second one coming up just on June the 2nd. In the first one, we had over 3,000 people come through the gallery in only 4 hours.
So anyone's available to come down, they should come down this Friday night?
They should go online and book their ticket.
Okay.
We have to have crowd control, and so you have to book your ticket online. Go on to the vanartgallery.ca website, click, buy a ticket, and be here. You'll have to wait in line a bit, but you will get in.
So if people come this Friday night, what will they see?
So we have the entire gallery is open this Friday. We have just opened a new show called Fashion Fictions. It's a really exciting show that explores all types of different fashion and technology, and people will really enjoy it.
All right, well, thank you very much, and I'm going to go check out some of the fashion.
Great.
The second annual Vancouver Greek Film Festival takes place at the Cinematheque. This year, the festival kicks off a calendar of events organized by the Hellenic Canadian Congress of BC during Greek Heritage Month, the month of June. It all culminates in Greek Day on Broadway, one of Vancouver's most famous street festivals. It takes place on Sunday, June 25th. West Vancouver Community Cultural Fest runs this weekend. This two-day festival brings people together through food, music, and culture. It takes place at Ambleside Park at the foot of 13th Street. And it's Hats Off Day in Burnaby this weekend, Saturday, June 3rd, on Hastings Street between Gamma Avenue and Boundary Road. It's the day businesses say thank you to their customers. There will be kids events, performances, and lots of food will be on hand or hat. I'm Lisa Christensen, and this has been Getting Out for this week. So don't forget, get out there, see some fashion, see some art, have some fun. I'll see you out there.
And before we let you go tonight, some breaking news with Vancouver police saying they are looking at multiple assaults on the downtown east side. There is a heavy police presence in the area, but at this point, it's not clear what is happening. That is it for our show tonight. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.